What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Flex NFL Wild Card Weekend Touchdown Special. I'm your host, Chris Raybon of the Action Network and Fantasy Labs, and I am joined by another top three ranking season, odds maker, the go to this ranking ish, Sean Koerner. Sean, congratulations on another great year. How's it going?
Yeah, thanks you too. We both finished top 10. So that was fantastic to see. Hope you're staying safe with all these fires. We're dealing with this as we speak. So yeah, hope you're doing good.
Yeah, man, we really love y'all out there because we're doing this. We're doing this live. I know Koerner is just ready for his flu game right now. Everything's burning down around me, so but we had to get this. We had to get the show off. So we're gonna go game by game, give out our favorite touchdown bets. We got odds and everything because we're doing this a little later in the week. So
Yep.
that's going to be fun. And we got 6 games, so we'll get right to it. A quick reminder, all of our fantasy football content is available right now over on fantasylabs.com. You can find all of our rankings, projections, tools, more at fantasylabs.com. Sean, it was another pretty good week in week 18. Bunch of
Yeah.
hits. Rashad Bateman, Booty got another. I think we've hit on him a few times on the show. Another Ray Davis. I feel
Yeah.
like we got the. It's always the same guys. It's like Ray
Well,
Davis,
they're
Parker Washington, every week.
uh,
Conklin.
Emmanuel Wilson.
Yep.
Emmanuel
Yep.
Wilson. But yeah, these are like longer shot guys, right? Like value guys under the radar. We're not giving out, Jamar Chase at minus 150. We're looking for these like value guys. And, I think we're going to be doing the same thing today where most of these guys are going to be 5-1. I've got somebody that's almost like a 20-1 long shot. So yeah, these aren't chalky picks to say the least.
Unless there's value on the chalk, then
Oh yeah,
we might
exactly.
have to dabble with it because
Yeah.
there are a couple guys I know we each have one like a
Yeah.
2 touchdown bet, but it's a chalky guy. So we'll
Yes.
jump right into it. We've got quick slip links in the episode description. So if you want to tail any of these bets that we give out today, just look for those quick slip links in the episode description. Saturday, wild card weekend, one of my favorite weekends in sports. We started with the Chargers at the Texans. 2.5 is the spread in favor of the Chargers on the road here. Texans just getting disrespected. The total is 42.5. I do expect a low scoring game. Sean, what do you like in this one?
Well, Raybon, it's been a couple months since I've been able to gush about Will Disley. Those were better times. I was healthy back then, so why not? Let's go back to the Will Disley bus here. Let's go with Will Disley at plus 375. And if you remember, he went on that mini tear as the lead tight end from weeks 6 through week 13, I would say. Then, he dealt with a few injuries, missed some time. He's been in and out of the lineup. But last week we actually saw him finally return to that full-time role when he was on that tear. He ran around on 71% of Herbert's dropbacks last week. That was the first time since week 12 he cleared 70%. So again, this is a good time to hop back on the Will Disley bus. Josh Palmer still isn't practicing, I think. And now Quentin Johnson is, missing some practice time. So this is a game where Disley, could be the number two target, the clear number two target, in a game where the Chargers might have to throw a bit more. And while the Texans have been good against tight ends, this isn't a game where I'm expecting, a ton of receptions, a ton of yards from Will Disley. They have been kind of prone to tight ends in the red zone. They've allowed 8 touchdowns against the position on the season, which is the fifth most. So, I'm projecting Disley, again, back in that full time role now, closer to plus 320 to score a touchdown. And that's with Josh Palmer in the lineup, which I don't even know if he's going to play this week, and Quentin Johnson at full strength. So I think we have some room to go, even lower on his odds here if Palmer is ruled out and or Quentin Johnson is, limited or even ruled out. So I kind of like the value we're getting here on Disley at plus 375. Um, then for the Texan side, as you alluded to, I got a chalky guy here with Joe Mixon, but I'm going with 2 or more touchdowns at plus 500. Joe has been pretty quiet down the stretch. He was actually held scoreless over the final 4 games of the season following their Week 14 bye. So I think this is a good time to buy low. And when it comes to goal line usage, Mixon was actually one of the most dominant in terms of just percentage of team rush attempts inside the 5 yard line. He saw 88% of the Texans' goal line attempts this season. Only Derrick Henry had a higher rate at 90%. And the only other running back on the Texans who even saw a goal line touch is Cam Akers, who plays with the Vikings now. So, Joe Mixon has literally zero competition around the goal line. So that's a great, thing when it comes to his projections. His odds to score a touchdown are -120. I'm actually in line with that, but I am showing some value on this 2+ touchdowns at +500. I'm projecting him closer to +450 here. So again, I agree with you. This should be a lower scoring game, but if the Texans do, get into Chargers territory a few times, it'll be Mixon who's getting 100% of the carries, maybe even a reception around the goal line. So I think he does have some sneaky upside here for multiple touchdowns at +500.
Yeah, I mean, that 88% goal line share is pretty much in line with his overall snap rate. Maybe that goes down slightly because Dameon Pierce had a really good game last week, but I doubt it. I mean, the Texans have just been kind of play mixing every snap when it's important all year long. And I agree on Disley. I think the catches and yards may be a little tougher to come by, but if you look at just the matchups in the red zone, Texans, you got Stingley, you got Lassiter on the other side. Like, those are tough cornerbacks to score on. So you're gonna kind of funnel the ball to other receivers that aren't the wide receivers out on the perimeter. So yeah, makes a lot of sense there. And hopefully those are the only 2 Texan touchdowns though, because I'm on the Texans in the under. So I can't have Joe Mixon scoring like 3 touchdowns.
No, 2 is fine. 2. Just 2.
Yeah, let's chill at 2.
Yeah.
All right. Next game up, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore favored by 9.5. The total is 43.5. That's come down a bit. Looks like Zay Flowers is going to miss at least this week and, potentially more into the future. So for Baltimore, I'm going with Isaiah Likely, common player on this show that we shout out here, but he's +275, and I'm showing some value on this one because he's second on Baltimore, 13 red zone targets. He leads the team with 8 targets inside the 10. And remember, he hasn't even been really a full-time player for much of the year. He's been behind Andrews, but last 2 weeks, 74% route rate, and Aguilar should be back, but now you have Flowers out. So likely, I still expect him to kind of operate as that de facto slot number 3 kind of wide receiver out there, and especially so in scoring position. So I do like Baltimore to continue to put up points. I do expect this one to be a lower scoring game too, but I do expect Baltimore to have success. So like him. And then on the Steelers side, it's a little tougher. I mean, after they did not even clear 200 yards and 20 points against the god-awful Bengals. Hard to have confidence in any of them, but got to go with Calvin Austin here. He's +550, and I'm showing some pretty good value there as well. I have it inside +500 in the high 470 something. And the reason is 3 of his 4 touchdowns this year have come from Russell Wilson. Pickens on the field actually tends to help him. I guess it draws coverage away. He also has a punt return score this year. And if you remember his first and only playoff game, he actually scored a touchdown against the Buffalo Bills in a 31-17 defeat last season. So Calvin Austin steps his game up when it matters most. At least that's what my 1-game sample size is telling me. So Isaiah Likely, Calvin Austin.
Love the Austin play. That's a nice little running back for me last week. Usually when you get a guy who's on that didn't score, they score. So that's really good news for
yeah, that was my main strategy. I just, I had to give some actual football reasons, but
yeah.
All right, Sunday, Broncos at the Bills. We both like some guys in this one, so a lot to get to here. 8.5 is the spread in favor of Buffalo at home. The total is 47. Sean, who do you like in Broncos Bills?
Yeah, so for the Broncos, this is the long shot I was talking about. It is gross. I will admit that, but it's Nate Atkins. Who? Nate Atkins plus 1,600 to score a touchdown. He's actually the Broncos' third string tight end, and the Broncos' tight ends have been just a wasteland in terms of production this year. So why the hell would I be giving him out? Atkins has had a knack for the occasional troll touchdown this year. He has three of them on the season on just 14 receptions. So he's kind of taken over that Jody Fortson role from the Chiefs back in the day, where all he does is catch touchdowns. So I think he's sneaky here. And, for what it's worth, the Broncos have been using all three tight ends pretty evenly, with Atkins' role kind of being a red zone weapon. And I went back and I rewatched all three of his touchdowns this year. And, he's setting up to block initially and then quickly goes into a route where Bo Nix looks his way pretty early in the route. One of them looked like a design play. Like they literally designed the play to go to Atkins for, wide open touchdown. So Nix is actually looking for him. None of them were like busted plays where Nix is running around and just happens to find him. Atkins has been very early in his progression, and one of them he made a nice spin move to find the end zone. So Atkins has had a knack to score touchdowns this year. Um, and last season or the last four games, I would say his routes run rate has actually been climbing up, and led to a season high 36% routes run rate last week. So, his usage has been trending up. Again, he's going to see more usage around the goal line anyway. They tend to use more heavy personnel around the goal line. So he's typically going to be out there, maybe blocking initially, but again, he does release, and a lot of times Nix looks his way. So I think he's a sneaky bet at 1,600 here. I'm actually projecting him closer to 11 to 1. So I think we're getting some decent value here. Again, this is a nice, fun long shot where he's proven a few times this year he can get in the end zone. And for the Bills side, got to go with our boy Ty Johnson. We've mentioned him quite a few times here on the show, but I like Ty Johnson at plus 650 to score. And obviously James Cook is the lead back here, but Ty Johnson typically spells him on passing downs, and that's important in this matchup because the Broncos have been pretty vulnerable to pass catching backs this year. They've allowed the fourth most yards and the fourth most receiving touchdowns with five to opposing running backs. But I think that there's kind of a sneaky quirk here where they might be even more prone to a back like Ty Johnson. They've been vulnerable to passes to running backs downfield, so 10 plus yards downfield, which is a bit of a rare occurrence, but they've allowed the second most yards allowed on those types of passes. And that's really Ty Johnson's specialty. He leads the league with 9 targets, 10 plus yards downfield. He actually has I think he has 153 yards on the season on targets 10 plus yards downfield, which is 2 times more than any other running back. That's how much he dominates this type of work, and it matches up perfectly against the Broncos. So I think he's a sneaky threat for a long catch, maybe a long touchdown here through the air. Plus, he does have a rushing score this year as well. Sometimes they mix him in near the goal line, which has typically been Ray Davis's role, but I think considering it is the playoffs, Ty Johnson does have experience. Maybe the Bills lean on him a little bit more here than usual over the rookie Ray Davis. So I think there's a lot of pass for Ty Johnson to score here. But again, I think this is a sneaky matchup where he tends to see passes downfield, and the Broncos have struggled with running backs running downfield routes. So give me Ty Johnson at plus 650 here to score.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that on display. What was against Detroit, right? Where
Detroit,
kind of similar defense, can play some man coverage, can blitz, and they kind of took advantage by getting their backs singled up, guys like that. And I think we could see that again. And with Atkins, yeah, he is their red zone tight end because Lucas Kroll, he gets the most routes. Guess how many red zone targets he has this year?
Probably zero if I had to guess.
Zero. Two last year. So two and two in his career. Two in his career. So he's got about his touchdown rate is, expected is pretty much zero. So like tight ends just aren't scoring from about more than 20 yards out unless you're really talented. So you knock him down and you kind of give those to Atkins. So it's like Atkins kind of double benefits more than just his whatever his snap rating. So like those. I actually got a couple more guys in this game. I think this is a pretty interesting game just because of how the defensive schemes for these teams. So we talked about Denver. They like to play a lot of man coverage. So I think one guy that's really interesting here is, I can't believe I'm saying this, is Amari Cooper, because first of all, he was away from the team for personal reasons. Books weren't even floating props for him for a while, but he's plus 375. I have this inside plus 300, even going against Patrick Surtain, who I expect him to match up with the most, because I think that's why we're getting value. I think this is a contrarian play. The market's only expecting about 2 catches for Cooper. I have him closer to 3, a little under 3. So obviously the touchdown odds jump up with that. But Surtain gave it 1 touchdown this year. It was to Xavier Legette. So, not great odds, but I do think Cooper's being vastly underrated, because even you're not going to, he probably doesn't see him on every play. You're not going to play man coverage on every play.
Right.
Remember, he shut down Jerry Jeudy, and Jerry Jeudy had like 250 yards receiving in that same game. So Cooper could certainly get free here. And he is one of the Bills receivers that fares the best against man coverage. And then for the Broncos, Michael Burton at plus 2,000. This is one, if you're betting first touchdowns and last touchdowns as well, I would recommend leaning toward first touchdown with a guy like Burton, just because if the Broncos are trailing late, the fullback is less likely to be in a game. But Burton has 14% of the Broncos carries inside the 5, 7% of their targets inside the 10. He has 6 total scoring opportunities inside the 10, and all of them have come in the second half of the season. He has 2 touchdowns over his last 5 games. So, and a third one overturned or challenged, and he was just short. So could have had 3 in the last 5 weeks. He's vulture status is alive and well. You don't know who's going to get the ball down there in the red zone, as you kind of alluded to with Denver. I mean, it could be Estime, it could be all these other guys. So I think
just anybody but Lucas Kroll, really.
Anybody but Lucas Kroll, exactly. There we go. Yeah. And we could kind of, Will Jordan Humphrey used to be like a staple down there, but not as much anymore. And that's why this other guy, promise, this is the last one, Devon Vele at plus 475. This is another guy I'm showing I'm at about 4-1, because Buffalo, top 4 zone team. And I always bump up Vele against teams that play zone coverage. I believe we hit on him on this show doing that a couple of times. And you might have even had like a Thursday night prop or something on him too, going against the zone heavy team or fading him. But that's, man coverage, he doesn't really pop. But for some reason, that big body up against zones, that's where all his touchdowns are coming from. Double his yards per route run when he goes against zone coverage. His target rate increases by about 4% per route. So love Vele as well. This is, and he's the better last touchdown better. If you're kind of leaning, Burton would be first touchdown, heavy personnel still in the game. Vele, more of a comeback script. He could score anytime, but just more of a, comeback script, maybe a garbage time score late for him. So Vele, Burton, Cooper, and then you like Atkins and Johnson. So we should have at least one from this going on, at least.
Yeah. Bo Nix doesn't target Vele in the red zone either. Vele is just there to catch the balls that bounce off of Michael Burton and Nate Atkins and Adam Troutman.
Right.
Like, he doesn't get targeted, but he still ends up, catching touchdowns. That was a miraculous touchdown grab last week, but it wasn't even targeted to him. But yeah, I do like him, again, like you said, against zone heavy teams.
All right. So hey, that's heck of a parlay right there. Green Bay, Philly. This one's interesting because both quarterbacks on the injury report this week. The Packers are 4.5-point underdogs in Philly. The total 45.5. Got to go with our guy Dontavian Wicks for Green Bay's plus 310. I have him about plus 275. No Christian Watson. That usually leads to Wicks getting about a 75 to 85% route rate. For the season, he's usually closer, to 45%, splitting time with Watson and maybe picking up a few snaps here and there and, 3 or 4 wide personnel. But usually he's going to get starter snaps in this one. And I do expect the Packers to trail in this game. And so I do expect Wicks to be out there. I like him more than some of the other guys like Jacobs and Kraft just for pure value. Thought about Heath and Bo Melton, but they're actually overvalued. I feel in the market. So the guy I'm showing the most value on, Dontavian Wicks, and then for the Philadelphia Eagles, they're always going to be one of the most overvalued teams in the touchdown market. So for anytime touchdown, I'm actually not showing value on a single Philadelphia Eagle. Just putting that out there. But 2+ touchdowns. I don't know why. I don't know if the books are like they're calculating these a little differently than we are, but like I'm showing value on Saquon here for two or more scores. He's plus 375, and I make that closer to 3-1. I mean, he's had I believe it's two multi-touchdown games already this season. I know Jalen Hurts is a big threat to that, but Jalen Hurts coming off the concussion, maybe they don't want to necessarily risk the tush push quite as much. Who knows? But either way, with Jalen Hurts active for all of the games that Barkley, except the one he left early, that was one of his multi-touchdown games. But 5 others were with Jalen Hurts active and starting. So yeah, Saquon Barkley 2+ scores. It's chalk, but I think it's undervalued. I think it should be closer to 3-1.
Yeah, and you said Bo Melton's overvalued. Has that ever happened before?
I
No,
don't
right?
think so. I don't think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
It's
9-1. Yeah, the
yeah,
market has
yeah,
finally wised up to, the GOAT.
yeah. I know you're pretty high on him this week. I think
Yeah,
you're
yeah, I think
yardage wise and
yeah, I
stuff. I
think
was looking at your numbers. So are you confident it's going to be? I know they were talking him up. Are you think it's going to be like pretty much mostly Bo and or it's going to be more of like a 50-50 with Malik Heath?
just some Bo is enough Bo. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
no, I think it'll be mostly Bo. I definitely
Okay.
have Heath mixing in, but I think they usually give Bo more work in these spots. Didn't he do pretty well in the playoffs last year too? I remember us talking about him heading in. But
Scored a
yeah,
touchdown in
if
the
you
against San Francisco, I want to say, and he had a 100-yard
yeah,
game. I think it was like week 17 or 18, heading into the playoffs, and then I think he scored in the divisional round. I believe it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's always thrived whenever he's seen a chance. So I'd say anytime his odds pop up over maybe 10-1 this week, he's worth a sprinkle. But yeah, a lot of books looks like, he's around 9-1. I would say that's pretty sharp. But if it gets over 10-1, he's definitely worth a sprinkle too.
All right. Next up, we got the Sunday night football game. Washington Commanders at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bucks favored by 3. The total 50.5. That is the highest of wild card weekend as we tape this here on Thursday. Sean, who do you like in Commanders Bucks?
Yeah, on the Commander side, I'm gonna go with Austin Eckler at plus 280. He was able to return last week after missing like over a month since he suffered that concussion back in week 12. So it was nice to see him back last week. But this is a matchup where, the Commanders are 3-point underdogs. It's more likely to be, trailing pass heavy game script. So that's going to benefit Eckler specifically out of this backfield. So you could see an uptick in playing time because of that. And he's been very efficient in his role with the Commanders this year. He has 4 touchdowns in just the 12 games. The Bucks are still dealing with, like a cluster injury situation with their safeties. So that could maybe help Eckler, in the passing game or, on an explosive run if he gets to the second level. So I think Eckler sneaky here at plus 280. I'm projecting him closer to plus 250, but I do like his upside just based on this matchup. And for the Buccaneers, I got to go with Baker Mayfield to score at plus 550. I mean, he's coming off a game where he ran 9 times for 68 yards. Clearly, he's more willing to use his legs right now in these must-win games like last week. And if you watch that game, he was constantly seeking contact, just getting into the Saints players' faces, throwing the ball at them, talking shit, like just getting fired up. So I think he's going to keep that going this week. So if they get in like a goal to go situation, if his first couple reads aren't there, he's going to be more than willing to pull the ball down, run, put his body on the line, trying to get in for the score. So he has 3 rushing scores on the season. So this is already, probably offering some slight value, but I think just given last week how he's kind of operating in these must-win games, I like him at plus 550 to score, projecting him closer to plus 500. But again, I think his scrambling upside is probably a little bit higher now heading into the playoffs.
I mean, Baker Mayfield has just been a monster this year.
Yeah.
So there's one offense since 2000, 28 points per game, 6 yards per play, 65% red zone, 50% third down. That one offense is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of 2024.
Yep.
Baker Mayfield. Love it.
Yep.
Love it. And yeah, regarding Eckler, I think he may even be used more than usual because as kind of an extension of the run game, because Brian Robinson hasn't looked right. They didn't play McNichols or Rodriguez really. They played him like one snap in the last game. And their center, Biotish, is a little banged up. So is he going to be able to kind of get out and, pull around and do all the things? Because, you can't just have an injured center trying to move Vita Vea off the ball. That's right. Not going to work. But if if he can't be pulling all crazy either, and Robinson's in quicksand. So you might just dump it off to Eckler in the red zone instead of handing it, for a Brian Robinson Jr. -2 line buck near the goal line. So I think Eckler has even more chances than usual.
Yeah, that's some great context. That's why we were both low on Brian Robinson on the previous pod. But yeah, Tyler Biotish is questionable. I mentioned Brian Robinson Jr. He runs inside at the 3rd highest rate. So when Biotish is out off the field, his yards per rush go down a full yard, over a yard. So that's going to be key. And like you said, Vita Vea is, the human wall just standing there right in the middle. So this is a really bad matchup for Brian Robinson. So yeah, it could just lead to more Eckler runs. Screen passes to Eckler could be an extension of the run game. Just a much better matchup for Eckler here.
All right, the final matchup of Wildcard Weekend, Monday Night Football, Minnesota Vikings at the Rams, rematch of that Thursday night game earlier this year where the Rams pulled off the upset. Rams 1.5 point home underdogs. The total is 47.5. For the Rams, Tyler Higbee. Like him, I think he should lead the tight end room. They all played last week, but Higbee's working his way back. I do think he ends up being that number 1 tight end. And, I have him projected for about 45-50% route rate. He's 5-1 to score, but there's a chance he just kind of takes all of the tight end snaps. Cause I think you pointed out on one of our pods either this week or last week that Sean McVay didn't really seem too happy with his, trio of tight ends this year. Kobe Parkinson, Davis Allen, both of those guys got kind of a shot at being the top pass catcher. Hunter Long, more of a blocker, but I think he's hurt anyway. So Higbee could go back to that Higbeast 70%, 80% route rate. There's an outside shot of that. So I think you're getting kind of some added upside here, betting on him for a touchdown. That's pretty much the only guy I like on the Rams. Rams are put a bit overvalued in the market, I think, in terms of the touchdowns. For the Vikings, couple of guys, though. Maybe it's because, recency bias with Sam Darnold, but a couple of pass catchers for the Vikings I'm showing value on. Number 1, Jalen Naylor, as usual. He's 5-1, and I think he should be more like 4-1. So I would have him at plus 400. He's out there at plus 500. And that's been the story all year. He's scored in 35% of his games. So I'm projecting him to score about 20% of the time. So significant regression, still value in the market. They're just knocking him way down for some reason. Maybe it's to prop up, I don't know, Hawkinson, who just never seems to score touchdowns. But speaking of Hawkinson, also like Josh Oliver in this spot because with Naylor and Oliver, you're kind of I wouldn't necessarily parlay them, but I think one of the two is a good bet to score. And Oliver's 12-1. So both of them, pretty big long shots, but there is also a chance after what happened last week with Sam Darnold and all the pressure and all the long developing routes, that they go and say, you know what? Let's go more two tight end, more 1-2 personnel. That would be Oliver. And he can release into routes. And he's usually the guy they end up leaving open because you got to worry about Jefferson, Addison, Hockenson. So love Josh Oliver at him closer to about 10-1. So Higbee, Naylor, Josh Oliver.
Yeah, you're not kidding. They're not really offering a buy low price on Hockenson, who hasn't scored this year. He's at 2-1. Which reminds me, you know who finally who finally scored their first touchdown with the Seahawks last week?
Was it Noah Fant?
Yeah, you didn't see that?
I thought, why did I think it was Barner? Oh no, I'm confusing the Barner touchdown from week like 16 with the Noah Fant. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
My boy Noah Fant finally paid off. He put his body on the line though. He got kind of banged up, but
yeah,
it was beautiful to see. I told finally the last week, like you said, we should have just done a last week parlay with all the guys that haven't scored for their team yet. But yeah, Noah Fant, man, he finally scored for me.
And our guy Gino got his $6 million of incentives, but yeah, love the Noah Fant call. That's been that's been like a show favorite, and he hadn't scored all year until as a Seahawk.
Yeah,
period.
Well, yeah, he started off as a DFS play, which he was doing fine. You know, catching 4 balls for 50 yards is pretty good for a cheap tight end, but he just wasn't scoring. But yeah, 2 seasons with the Seahawks. Now he's part of that Russ Wilson trade. Finally scored his first touchdown with the Seahawks. So congrats, Noah Fant.
Yes, sir. All right, that is gonna do it. But before we get out of here, we got the Parlay Express account on the Action Network app. That's where we track all of our experts' long shot plays, parlays, parlay projection, same game parlay edges, things like that. So 6 games on the slate. We're gonna pick our top 2 favorite touchdown scorers from today's episode, 1 each, and we'll throw a little parlay with them together. You can track it in Parlay Express by following the Parlay Express account on the Action Network app, the free award-winning Action Network app, I might add. Sean, who you going with for your favorite touchdown pick for Wild Card Weekend?
I mean, I got to go with Will Disley. We are so back.
Love it. If only Noah Fant was on the slate.
That's right. Yeah. Well, Will Disley will do.
Yeah, I mean, you know who I'm going with already. My guy. I might have been on him for 4 or 5 of those 6 touchdowns that he scored this year.
Yep.
Jalen Naylor. Yep. Gotta go back to the well. I don't throw percentage.
Yeah.
About 75 exactly. Or so. So yeah, I gotta keep it going here. 5-1. And Disley plus 375. So that should be a nice little parlay there. If you want to tail this bet or any of the bets that Sean and I have discussed today, look for the quick slip links in the episode description. It's really super easy. You just click that link and it will open up a bet slip for you to tail right there. Easy. So again, check for the quick slip links in the episode description. That's going to do it for our Wild Card Weekend Fantasy Flex Touchdown Special episode. Be sure to subscribe to the pod so you don't miss an episode all post-season long. We also have our projections pod, which drops on Tuesday, and then we'll do these every Thursday as well. FantasyLabs.com, as I mentioned, for all of our fantasy football content. You can use promo code FLEX40 there. And you can find Sean on X at _oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until the divisional round, let's get this money.